Is it casualness? Is it an attempt to make Dave seem less important? I had to find your email address online. You're not so important that I have your email address. But there's something here.
And my email address is available at rushhourwithdave.com. You can find my email very easily. But of course, he's calling out this letter that was sent to me, which was supposed to be by a friend who says my reporting essentially led to Laura trying to kill herself. This is what was said here, which again is like weaponized terrorism. It's like emotional terrorism. It's bad stuff. It's not the first time I've been told that there's the blood on my hands. And of course, as we've doubled down and reported on this case, you guys know as much as I do.
I think that wants to put some distance between this person and Dave. I haven't thought about you before. I had to find your email address online. And why is that the important first thing to say? Maybe it's not true. Maybe this is all about image.
Could this weekend have just destroyed Blake Lively's entire legal case? New evidence has emerged that might flip everything we thought we knew about Hollywood's most explosive legal battle. While Blake Lively claimed she was the victim of a coordinated smear campaign, bombshell revelations now suggest her own publicist was the one orchestrating attacks against Justin Baldoni. We're talking about hard evidence, paper trails, and testimony that could land someone behind bars. If you're following this story, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because what we're about to reveal will change everything. The question isn't whether Blake Lively will win this case anymore. The question is, will she face criminal charges herself? Let's dive into the evidence that has the internet buzzing and legal experts questioning everything. This weekend brought a seismic shift in the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni saga. James Fatusa, a former Daily Mail reporter, has completely changed his story about who was feeding him information during the height of the "It Ends With Us" controversy. Here's where it gets explosive. Fatusa originally claimed Baldoni's team was orchestrating a smear campaign against Lively, but now he's provided concrete evidence showing it was actually Blake Lively's own publicist, Leslie Sloan, who was seeding negative stories about Baldoni to multiple media outlets. Without a crystal ball, a YouTube investigator with a track record of exposing celebrity scandals obtained direct email communications and FaceTime call records proving Fatusa was in regular contact with Sloan throughout the campaign. These aren't rumors or hearsay. We're talking about time-stamped emails, phone records, and detailed communications that paint a very different picture. The implications are staggering. If Blake Lively's team was actively spreading misinformation about Justin Baldoni, and Baldoni hired crisis management in response to protect his reputation, then Lively's entire retaliation case crumbles. You can't claim someone retaliated against you when you fired the first shot. But here's the kicker. Wayfair Studios, Baldoni's production company, now has access to all of this evidence. Court documents reveal they've been building their defense around these communications for months. They knew this was coming.
With regard to James Fatusa, former reporter for the Daily Mail. A lot of people are wondering why he has changed his story. Has he been getting harassed? Does Ryan Reynolds' Blake Lively team have dirt on him? But he's completely changed his story. And normally you would be not too credible when doing so, but also these are hard receipts from several months ago that Katie from Without a Crystal Ball has. Now, she's been questioned by people.
Instead of making her life hell, I think you would have found she was a much different person than you made her out to be. Now, I have studied a lot of the communications between Laura and Clayton Echard in the Bachelor paternity scandal, which is now finished and Laura lost. And that was one of the themes in that, and the conversations, in the communications that she was sending to Clayton was about dating contracts, and you must get to know me and we can spend some time. She really felt in all of that if he spent some time with her, he would find out she was a different person, and Clayton would want to be together with Laura. Clayton didn't want anything to do with Laura, but Laura was convinced that if he signed this dating contract, which she tried to coerce him into, then she would come across as a much nicer person and he would find her a much nicer person. It's the exact same concept that is here.
The legal strategy becomes crystal clear when you understand the timeline. Baldoni's team wasn't launching offensive attacks. They were responding to a coordinated campaign that had already begun. That's not retaliation. That's self-defense. What makes this even more damaging for Lively is the pattern of behavior. Court filings show she issued a 17-point list of demands before returning to set, essentially holding production hostage unless her conditions were met. Baldoni described feeling like his film was being held hostage by someone who can and will use anything against me. This wasn't a case of workplace harassment escalating into legal action. This was strategic warfare from day one. Let's dig deeper into how this deception unfolded, because the more you examine the evidence, the more calculated this entire operation appears. The communications between Leslie Sloan and James Fatusa reveal a sophisticated propaganda machine designed to destroy Justin Baldoni's reputation while protecting Blake Lively's public image. The email exchanges show Sloan wasn't just providing information. She was crafting narratives. Multiple sources confirm she supplied specific talking points about Baldoni's alleged inappropriate behavior, suggested story angles that would maximize damage, and even provided timing recommendations for maximum media impact. But here's what makes this particularly damaging. The communications reveal Sloan was coordinating with multiple reporters simultaneously. This wasn't isolated leaking to one journalist. This was a multi-front assault designed to saturate media coverage with negative stories about Baldoni. The strategy becomes even more disturbing when you analyze the psychological manipulation involved. Sloan reportedly focused on stories that would trigger emotional responses rather than rational analysis. She understood that in the current media environment, outrage spreads faster than facts. What's particularly insidious is how the campaign exploited legitimate concerns about workplace harassment. By weaponizing serious social issues, Lively's team made it nearly impossible for anyone to question the allegations without appearing to dismiss victim experiences entirely. The evidence suggests this wasn't reactive crisis management. It was proactive reputation destruction. Communications show planning and coordination that began months before any public controversy erupted. They were preparing for war before Baldoni even knew a battle was coming. Independent media analysts examining the campaign have identified sophisticated techniques typically associated with political opposition research. This included monitoring social media sentiment, tracking story performance across different platforms, and adjusting messaging based on audience reaction. The scope of the operation becomes clear when you realize they weren't just targeting traditional entertainment media. Evidence shows outreach to gossip bloggers, social media influencers, and even attempts to manipulate online discussion forums to create artificial grassroots opposition to Baldoni. Perhaps most disturbing is evidence suggesting the campaign included efforts to discourage potential witnesses or supporters of Baldoni from speaking publicly. This goes beyond mere publicity. It ventures into witness intimidation territory. The technological sophistication involved is staggering. The communications reveal use of encrypted messaging apps, coordinated timing across multiple time zones, and even discussion of using automated social media accounts to amplify negative messaging. What makes this evidence particularly powerful in court is its preservation. Unlike many cases where communications disappear or witnesses stay silent, this campaign was so extensive that evidence trails survived across multiple platforms and participants. The psychological profile that emerges from these communications is troubling. This wasn't someone acting out of emotional trauma or genuine fear. The calculated nature of the planning suggests someone who understood exactly how to manipulate media cycles and public opinion for personal gain. The evidence also reveals attempts to anticipate and counter potential defensive moves by Baldoni's team. They weren't just attacking, they were planning responses to every possible defense strategy. This level of strategic thinking suggests professional-level reputation warfare. Let's rewind for a second to understand how this Hollywood nightmare began. It Ends With Us was supposed to be Blake Lively's triumphant return to leading roles, adapted from Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel about domestic violence. Justin Baldoni wasn't just the director, he was also the star, playing the abusive husband character. From the outside, it seemed like the perfect collaboration between a respected actor-director, known for his advocacy work, and a major Hollywood star with massive social media influence. But behind the scenes, tensions were brewing from early production. Lively allegedly presented that infamous 17-point list of demands, including requirements about how certain scenes could be filmed, who could be present during intimate scenes, and approval over final cuts. The demands reportedly went far beyond typical star requirements. Sources close to production describe an atmosphere where normal filmmaking processes were constantly disrupted by new conditions and restrictions that had to be negotiated in real time. Here's where the story gets murky. Lively's lawsuit claims Baldoni created a hostile work environment and later retaliated against her with a coordinated PR campaign. She painted herself as a victim of Hollywood's toxic power dynamics, someone who stood up to inappropriate behavior and faced consequences for speaking truth to power. Baldoni's team fired back with their own lawsuit, claiming Lively was the one who made production impossible with unreasonable demands and threatening behavior. They say she's weaponizing serious allegations to cover up her own unprofessional conduct and avoid accountability for disrupting a major film production. The public initially sided with Lively. After all, she's Blake Lively. She's America's sweetheart with a massive fan base and decades of goodwill. Baldoni, while respected in certain circles, doesn't have that same level of mainstream recognition or public support. But as more evidence emerged, public opinion began shifting. Social media investigators started questioning inconsistencies, In Lively's story, content creators began analyzing her behavior during the film's promotion tour, noting how she seemed to distance herself from the domestic violence themes while focusing on fashion and lifestyle content. That disconnect between the serious subject matter and Lively's promotional approach raised eyebrows. Here was a film dealing with intimate partner violence, and the lead actress was treating press interviews like fashion shows. Let's break down what these revelations mean in simple legal terms. Lively's case hinges on proving two things. First, that she faced a hostile work environment, and second, that Baldoni retaliated against her for reporting it. The hostile work environment claim requires showing a pattern of behavior that made her workplace unbearable. But if evidence shows she was the one making demands and creating difficult working conditions, that argument falls apart. You can't claim someone else made your workplace hostile when you were the one setting impossible conditions. The retaliation claim is even more problematic now. Retaliation means punishing someone for reporting misconduct. But if Lively's own team was already running a smear campaign against Baldoni, and he hired PR professionals to defend himself, that's not retaliation. That's self-preservation. Here's the legal principle at play. You can't provoke a response and then claim that response was unprovoked retaliation. If you throw the first punch, the other person's counterattack isn't assault, it's defense. The law recognizes this distinction, and it's devastating to Lively's case. The evidence suggests Baldoni's team spent around $90,000 on crisis management over 3 months. That's significant money, but it's nowhere near the $9 million initially claimed by his business partner Jamie Heath in what appears to have been frustrated exaggeration during a private conversation. More importantly, those expenditures came after Leslie Sloan was already seeding negative stories to reporters. The timeline completely undermines the retaliation narrative. You can't claim someone retaliated against you for actions they took before you made any accusations. From a strategic standpoint, Baldoni's legal team appears to have been playing chess while Lively's team was playing checkers. They documented everything, preserved communications, and built their defense around hard evidence, rather than public sympathy or emotional appeals. The timing is crucial here. Baldoni expressed concerns about being held hostage by Lively months before any public controversy erupted. That shows he was already dealing with difficult behavior long before any alleged retaliation occurred. These weren't reactions to harassment accusations. These were contemporaneous observations about ongoing workplace problems. If this evidence holds up in court, Lively doesn't just lose her case. She potentially faces countersuits for defamation, tortious interference with business relationships, and possibly even criminal charges if prosecutors determine she knowingly filed false reports or participated in witness intimidation. The legal precedent this case sets could be enormous. It would send a message that celebrity status doesn't protect you from consequences when you weaponize serious accusations for personal gain. The entertainment industry has been waiting for a case that establishes clear boundaries around false allegations, and this might be it. This case reveals something disturbing about how power works in Hollywood. We've seen similar patterns before. Powerful figures using their influence to destroy careers and reputations through coordinated media campaigns. But here's what makes this different: the evidence trail. In previous cases, these campaigns operated in shadows, through whisper networks and off-the-record conversations. This time, investigators found the receipts. The digital age has made it much harder to hide coordinated manipulation campaigns. The implications extend far beyond this single case. If Blake Lively's team was willing to fabricate a harassment campaign against Justin Baldoni, what does that say about other high-profile cases? How many careers have been destroyed by similar tactics that just weren't exposed? The entertainment industry is watching this case closely because the outcome will determine how these battles are fought in the future. If Lively faces serious consequences for false allegations, it sends a clear message that even A-list celebrities aren't above the law. But there's another layer to consider. Leslie Sloan, Lively's publicist, has represented numerous high-profile clients over the years. If she was willing to orchestrate a smear campaign against Baldoni, investigators are now questioning whether similar tactics were used in other cases involving her clients. The pattern of behavior revealed in the Fatusa communications shows a sophisticated understanding of how to manipulate media coverage. This wasn't amateur hour, this was professional reputation destruction, using techniques refined over years of celebrity crisis management. Here's what could happen next. If criminal charges are filed, we're looking at potential felony counts for conspiracy, defamation, and filing false police reports. These aren't slap-on-the-wrist charges. These are career-ending, life-altering consequences that could result in significant prison time. The civil implications are equally serious. Baldoni could seek damages for lost earnings, reputation damage, and emotional distress. Given his career trajectory before this controversy, we're talking about potentially millions in damages. His entire production company and future projects were affected by this campaign. But perhaps the most significant consequence is the precedent this sets for future cases. It establishes that fabricating harassment allegations isn't just morally wrong, it's legally actionable with severe consequences. This could fundamentally change how these accusations are processed in Hollywood. The case also highlights the vulnerability of male figures in the entertainment industry to coordinated reputation attacks. While legitimate harassment cases deserve full support and investigation, this case demonstrates how those same mechanisms can be weaponized for personal gain. The technological aspects of this case point to a new era of reputation warfare that combines traditional PR tactics with social media manipulation and digital evidence trails. Future cases will need to account for this technological sophistication. Let's examine the specific evidence that's causing legal experts to predict Blake Lively's case is doomed. The communications between Leslie Sloan and James Fatusa aren't just incriminating. They're damning in ways that could reshape how we understand celebrity PR operations. These emails show a deliberate strategy to plant negative stories about Baldoni while making it appear the information was coming from concerned industry insiders. Sloan reportedly provided Fatusa with specific talking points, suggested angles for stories, and even helped craft narratives that would maximize damage to Baldoni's reputation. But the evidence goes deeper than simple story placement. The communications reveal a sophisticated understanding of media psychology, how to frame stories for maximum emotional impact, which outlets to target for different audiences, and how to time releases for optimal viral spread. The timeline is crucial here. These communications began months before Baldoni hired any crisis management team. That completely undermines Lively's claim that she was responding to his retaliation campaign. The evidence shows she was the one launching attacks, and her team was already planning for a sustained campaign, but it gets worse for Lively's team. The communications reveal they were tracking the effectiveness of their campaign, monitoring social media reaction, and adjusting their strategy based on what was getting the most traction. This wasn't emotional response to workplace trauma. This was calculated reputation warfare with measurable objectives. Independent analysts examining these communications have identified linguistic patterns suggesting the campaign was orchestrated by someone with sophisticated PR experience. The language used, the strategic timing of releases, and the coordination across multiple media outlets points to professional-level manipulation that goes far beyond typical celebrity publicist activities. What makes this evidence particularly powerful is its authenticity. These aren't leaked screenshots that could be doctored. These are communications obtained through proper legal channels with full metadata and verification. In court, this evidence would be virtually unassailable because it includes server logs, timestamps, and digital signatures that prove authenticity. Therefore, the most damaging aspect might be how the evidence contradicts Lively's public statements. While she was claiming to be a victim of harassment and retaliation, her own team was actively orchestrating the exact type of campaign she accused Baldoni of running. This creates what lawyers call unclean hands. You can't seek legal remedy for behavior you're actively engaging in yourself. Legal experts point out this creates massive credibility problems for Lively's entire case. If she was willing to lie about who was running smear campaigns, what else might she have lied about? The evidence of deliberate deception calls into question every aspect of her accusations. The evidence also reveals something troubling about how these campaigns operate. The communications show attempts to manipulate not just traditional media, but social media influencers, online commentators, and even bot networks to amplify negative messaging. This is reputation warfare using military-grade information tactics. This level of sophisticated manipulation raises questions about how many other celebrity controversies were artificially manufactured rather than organic responses to genuine misconduct. The techniques revealed in this case could be templates for understanding other high-profile scandals. The preservation of this evidence appears to have caught Lively's team completely off guard. The communications suggest they believed their coordination would remain private, never anticipating that legal discovery would expose the full scope of their campaign. The breakdown of Blake Lively's case represents something larger than one legal dispute gone wrong. It exposes fundamental flaws in how we process accusations in the social media age and reveals the devastating consequences when those systems are manipulated. Consider how quickly public opinion turned against Baldoni based on initial reporting. Within hours of the first stories breaking, his reputation was in ruins. Projects were canceled, relationships severed, and career opportunities disappeared, all based on what we now know was a coordinated disinformation campaign designed to destroy an innocent person's livelihood. This case study in reputation destruction reveals how easily public perception can be manipulated when people want to believe a particular narrative. Lively fit the victim archetype perfectly. Beloved actress standing up to powerful director. Baldoni fit the villain role. Man in position of authority accused of misconduct. The story was so compelling that few people questioned whether it was actually true. But the evidence suggests this entire narrative was fiction crafted by professional manipulators who understood exactly which emotional buttons to push. The real story appears to be about a difficult actress making impossible demands and then weaponizing serious allegations when she didn't get her way. The psychological manipulation involved is particularly disturbing. The communications reveal strategies designed to trigger emotional responses rather than rational analysis. They targeted people's existing beliefs about power dynamics in Hollywood to create predetermined conclusions that served Lively's interests. What's especially concerning is how this manipulation extended beyond traditional media into social platforms where ordinary people were unknowingly participating in a manufactured controversy. Bot networks amplified certain messages while suppressing others, creating an artificial consensus that influenced real people's opinions and decisions. The technological aspects of this campaign point to resources and sophistication that go far beyond typical celebrity PR. We're talking about coordinated information warfare, using techniques typically associated with political campaigns or foreign interference operations. This represents a new level of reputation warfare that most people aren't equipped to recognize or resist. The implications for future cases are staggering. If this level of manipulation is standard practice, how can anyone trust initial reporting? On celebrity controversies, how many careers have been destroyed by similar campaigns that simply weren't exposed because the evidence wasn't preserved or sources weren't willing to come forward? The legal system appears to have safeguards against this type of manipulation, but they only work when evidence is properly preserved and analyzed. In this case, investigators got lucky that the communications were recoverable and that sources were willing to risk retaliation to expose the truth. But in how many other cases did similar evidence disappear or sources stay silent out of fear? The scope of potential manipulation across the entertainment industry could be far larger than anyone realized. This case might just be the tip of the iceberg. The case also demonstrates how quickly false narratives can become accepted truth in our current media environment. Once the initial stories spread, each subsequent report built on previous coverage without independent verification, creating a feedback loop that amplified false information. As this case moves toward its inevitable conclusion, the evidence points to a complete vindication of Justin Baldoni and potential criminal liability for Blake Lively's team. The question isn't whether justice will be served, but how comprehensive that justice will be and what precedent it sets for future cases. The immediate legal outcomes seem clear. Lively's harassment and retaliation claims appear destined for dismissal based on overwhelming evidence that she was the aggressor. Baldoni's countersuit for defamation and business interference looks increasingly strong. We're likely looking at significant monetary damages and public vindication for Baldoni, but the broader implications extend far beyond this single case. The entertainment industry is being forced to confront how these reputation campaigns actually operate and what safeguards need to exist to prevent future manipulation. This case could fundamentally change how accusations are processed in Hollywood. The precedent being set here establishes that weaponizing serious social issues for personal gain carries severe consequences. The evidence requirements may become more stringent, the verification processes more thorough, and the penalties for false allegations more severe. For Blake Lively personally, the consequences appear to be career-ending. Even if she avoids criminal charges, the evidence of orchestrating a smear campaign will follow her for the rest of her career. Studios and directors will be extremely reluctant to work with someone who has demonstrated willingness to destroy colleagues through manufactured scandals. As we watch this case conclude, remember that justice delayed isn't always justice denied. Sometimes it takes time for the truth to surface, but when it does, the consequences can be swift and severe. What do you think about these revelations? Does this evidence convince you that Blake Lively's case was built on false premises? How should the entertainment industry change to prevent future manipulation campaigns? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this analysis opened your eyes to something new, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the cases that are reshaping Hollywood. The truth is out there. Sometimes you just have to dig a little deeper to find it. And if this case moves forward to criminal proceedings, it could expose everything about how reputation warfare really operates in the entertainment industry.